The 6th National Brigade for the Search for Disappeared Persons in Mexico confirmed that human remains were found in several unmarked graves in the state of Morelos, south of Mexico City. On Saturday sees the second day of the Tribunal Spirit of Mandela in New York City, a way to denounce the U.S. atrocities against Black, brown, and indigenous people. Climate activists from the Global South protested in the Swedish capital Stockholm on Friday ahead of the COP26 summit in Glasgow to demand action on the environment. From the headquarters of teleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm your host, Gladys Quesada, and these are the news. The 6th National Brigade for the Search for Disappeared Persons in Mexico confirmed that human remains were found in several unmarked graves in the state of Morelos, south of Mexico City. The brigade, made up of around 160 members of family collectives, explained that among the remains located, 8 were found in the municipality of Yecaparixtla after an extensive search operation through excavations. So they still ponder the possibility of it being a mass grave, taking into account the perimeter of approximately 800 meters, which was traveled by the relatives of the missing victims. Up to now, 10 unmarked burial sites have been found by the brigade after it visited 13 municipalities since October 9th. Ecuador's Attorney General's office on Thursday said it has opened a preliminary investigation against President Guillermo Lasso for tax fraud after an opposition leader presented allegations against him linked to the Pandora Papers leak. Meanwhile, the president confirmed his refusal to appear before the Ecuadorian parliament this Friday to respond to the allegations contained in the Pandora Papers investigation. The head of the Constitutional Guarantees Committee of the National Assembly, Fernando Cabascango, pointed out that the information submitted by the executive regarding the issue is not sufficient. Therefore, the president was once again summoned to appear in parliament on Friday morning. The government of Bolivia reiterated its condemnation regarding the behavior of the Organization of American States with respect to its irregular and completely questionable investigation into supposed electoral fraud in 2019. Foreign Minister Rogelio Mayra emphasized that based on the OAS report, which stated that electoral fraud was committed, legal proceedings were initiated during the period in which the coup-plotting de facto government was in office. He underlined that this investigation, already in its final phase, has shown that there were no irregularities in the 2019 electoral process, as stated by the OAS mission, claims which were used to justify the coup against the Evo Morales government. And a team of archaeologists in northern Peru has discovered the remains of 29 people, including 3 children, that could help experts rewrite the history of the pre-Incan warrior civilization. The skeletons were buried more than 1,000 years ago in Huaca Santa Rosa de Pucala, an ancient ceremonial center in the coastal region of Lambayeque, located 750 kilometers to the north of the capital, Lima. The head researcher of the project explained this is the first time a discovery linked to the warrior civilization has been made this far from the area of influence, leading experts to rethink the history of this region of Peru. The warrior culture flourished in the central Peruvian Andes from the 7th to 13th centuries. Now we address other topics. Venezuela is to begin vaccinating children from the age of 12 after Monday as the country resumes face-to-face classes suspended since March 2020 due to the COVID-19 pandemic. President Nicolás Maduro Moros also informed that authorities plan to commence the vaccination of children over the age of 3 very soon. To date, the Pan American Health Organization estimates that more than 16 million doses of vaccines have been applied in Venezuela. 9.9 million Venezuelans have been immunized with a first dose and 6.1 million with 2 doses.
Next Monday, attention Venezuela, attention mothers, fathers, representatives. On Monday we start vaccinating children over 12 years old, 12 years and older. Good news, news, news. Kids aged 12 and up. Classes begin on Monday and we begin to vaccinate the children, the growing ones, formerly called teenagers now, called the growing ones, and youngsters, and with the dream of starting to vaccinate children over 3 years old very soon.
The Iranian capital Tehran saw its first public Friday prayers in almost 2 years. The National Coronavirus Task Force, which had ordered a halt to the prayers, authorized their resumption under strict health protocols to prevent the spread of COVID-19, including the use of face masks and the regular disinfection of the area. Hundreds of worshippers attended the ceremony at Tehran University. Public Friday prayers have been underway in other cities, especially in smaller towns across the country since the summer. Individual mosques have been free to hold normal services since early October. The move comes as Tehran hosts over 400 Muslim scholars and religious leaders for a meeting known as the International Islamic Unity Conference. And we'll be right back after this very short break, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. The second day of the International Tribunal on the U.S. human rights violations, called Spirit of Mandela, is taking place in New York City. Spirit of Mandela is a campaign to bring international attention to the U.S. violations of the human rights of U.S. held political prisoners, as well as the U.S. systemic oppression and repression of Black, brown, and indigenous people. The tribunal builds on the revolutionary legacy of W.E. Du Bois, William Patterson, and Paul Robeson for bringing very similar charges against the United States before the United Nations in 1951. The ideological vision of this tribunal has been led by Jalil Muntaqim, who spent nearly 50 years in prison, founded the Jericho movement with Safiya Bukhari while in prison and was paroled a year ago, and Jihad Abdul Munit, president of the Jericho movement today. Both were in the Black Panther Party and its armed struggle branch, the Black Liberation Army. And this Friday, a hearing was held on the crimes committed by the United States government against WikiLeaks founder and editor Julian Assange. The hearing, convened by the Progressive International Organization, took place after the revelation of the CIA plot to kidnap and assassinate Assange while he was in the Ecuadorian embassy in London. The event, titled the Belmarsh Tribunal, comes ahead of Assange's extradition proceedings, which are set to continue in London's High Court from October 27th to 28th. The Belmarsh Tribunal is an instance based on the Russell-Sartre People's Tribunal, established to investigate the United States intervention in the Vietnam War. The tribunal brought together leading figures in politics, law, and journalism to shed light on the U.S. crimes that were revealed by WikiLeaks and also to discuss the abuses committed against Assange after exposing those crimes. U.S. whistleblower Edward Snowden addressed the tribunal from Moscow. He stressed that Julian Assange's only crime has been to tell the unspeakable truth against all odds.
When I came forward in 2013, I said the reason that I came forward was that we have a right to know that which is done to us and that which is done in our name by our governments. That was already under threat. And when you look at the world since, it seems that that trend is accelerating. Do we still have that right? Do we have any rights if we don't defend them? Well, today we see someone who has stood up to defend that right, who has aggressively championed that right at an extreme cost. And it's time for us to defend his rights. He has consistently and continuously dared to speak the unspeakable in the face of opposition, in the face of power, and that is a remarkable and rare thing. That is the reason that Julian Assange sits in prison today.
Assange's partner, Stella Morris, underlined that what has been done to Julian forms part of the strategies developed under the so-called War on Terror.
What's being done to Julian is part of a continuum that started with the War on Terror, a chipping away at individual rights and freedoms. The Extradition Act that is being used against Julian is actually a tool of the War on Terror. It was enacted in 2003 to make it easier to extradite people. And we have to see what is being done to him through the prism of the War on Terror, the tools that were developed through the War on Terror. Julian was the person who, in our generation, has done the most to expose the War on Terror. And the War on Terror isn't just about illegal wars. It's not just about institutionalizing torture and rendition. It's about bringing home that dismantlement of our rights.
Addressing the hearing, Tariq Lee, historian and original member of the Morelos State Tribunal, recalled the role of Western powers in silencing the crimes committed during the Vietnam War. He also stressed that Assange exposed the war on terror carried out by the U.S. and for that reason has been the target of the U.S. attacks.
Now, Julian exposed another set of wars. Basically, he exposed the so-called War on Terror, which began after 9/11, has lasted 20 years, has led to 6 wars, millions killed, trillions wasted. So what do you say to people like Chelsea Manning and Julian, who's the principal target of the legal and judicial brutalities taking place?
Jeremy Corbyn, member of the UK Parliament and founder of the Peace and Justice Project, referred to the invasion of Afghanistan and the media campaigns that manipulated international opinion regarding that war. Corbyn also criticized the media narratives that went unchecked and stressed the role of Julian Assange in exposing them.
Of the media and of real journalists is absolutely enormous in that. And Julian Assange has paid a very, very, very high price for his lifelong determination to expose the truth. Why? Is it because he has some idea that he can make himself famous by exposing the truth? Or is it something much stronger and much more moral than that? The belief that by exposing the truth, you can save lives, you can stop wars, and you can make sure that democracies function properly by holding all public officials, elected or unelected, to public account. And that's why the role of Julian Assange in all of this is so important.
Former Ecuadorian President Rafael Correa once again denounced the abuses Assange suffered during his stay in Ecuador's London embassy under the presidency of Lenín Moreno.
Lenín Moreno had offered to hand over Julian Assange to the United States in exchange for financing. Then what Julian Assange was really subjected to was torture in the Ecuadorian embassy, mistreating him, taking away a lot of services, right to communication, internet, deliberately spying on him and pushing him to decide to leave the embassy by his own means, which they failed to do. Finally, after a brutal, inhumane harassment, undermining Julian Assange's human rights, for the first time in history, a government allows an armed forces to enter its embassy to capture Assange, and the Ecuadorian state hands over Julian Assange.
And we have more stories coming up after this final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back from the South. Greta Thunberg and climate activists from the Global South protested in the Swedish capital Stockholm on Friday ahead of the COP26 summit in Glasgow to demand action on the environment. In particular, demonstrators demanded that the world's developed nations listen to people from the most affected areas by climate change, as the Global South deals with the increasing challenges and dangers from global warming. They also stressed that richer nations must act since they are responsible for the crisis, having exploited developing nations for centuries. The UN has warned that the world's nations are currently planning to produce more than double the amount of coal, oil and gas, consistent with limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius, as international leaders prepare to participate in the Glasgow Climate Summit, billed as key to viability of the Paris Agreement temperature goals.
So a lot of the Global South activists are here today in Stockholm because we wanted to bring the people from the most affected areas to one of the biggest strikes. And this is so important because when we're talking about the climate crisis, we have to listen to the people who are already experiencing the climate crisis. So we move away from the notion that the climate crisis is a problem of the future, but really a problem of the present that's happening today.
Okay, what I'm expecting in Complex 6 to be inclusive, to include all people, especially people from most affected area, youth, because youth are the one who have been going in strike every Friday, every year, try to push our leader to tell them that climate change is real and they need to believe in science.
European countries are historically responsible for most of CO2 emissions with the United States, so we have to demand that them, together with the USA, start to take action like every other country, of course, but they have more responsibility since they exploited my countries and other countries in the Global South.
And torrential rains triggered floods in Ivory Coast economic capital Abidjan on Friday, killing at least 4 people. The victims were all registered in a poor area of the city with little infrastructure and near hillsides that pose danger in bad weather. Firefighters were searching for 2 children who were swept away by the waters. There was significant material damage, with video shared online showing water sweeping away everything in its path, including a car. Abidjan's rainy season usually lasts from May to late July, but climate change has contributed to unexpected late rainfall. And the Syrians celebrated the highly anticipated 4th annual Pomegranate Festival in Idlib province, providing a unique opportunity for farmers to showcase their fruit. Held in the village of Darkush, along with the Orontes River in Idlib province, the festival is a competition for the best fruit, as well as stalls offering handcrafts and festive dishes. The festival celebrates the local produce and ingredients of the region, promotes trade, and provides a welcome social event. There are several varieties of pomegranate in the Darkush region, which differ in size and color, while there is even a seedless variety. According to participants at the festival, the most sought after and best variety in this region of Syria is the Al-Lufan because of its size. The region is also known for the molasses and juice made from these pomegranates.
This year, despite huge obstacles, we held our 4th annual Pomegranate Festival. There are several exhibitions this year, but the attendance has dropped because of COVID-19, and we are suffering from it. The aim of the festival is to stimulate trade of the farmers' harvest in Darkush and to market their products locally and elsewhere. People from Darkush came out to the festival this year, along with residents from neighboring areas, and we had exhibitions of crafts and handmade goods. And, thanks God, we were able to do something good.
I'm happy to attend to the Pomegranate Festival. We hold one every year in Darkush. What captured my attention most this year were the paintings portraying the suffering of the Syrian people in the liberated areas. Usually, many more people attend the festival, but this year, because of the coronavirus, the numbers are much lower.
And the United Nations is cooperating with the government of Syria to repair industrial facilities which were damaged by the terrorist war. Minister of Industry Ziad Sabah discussed the projects with UN envoy Emmanuel Clancy, stressing the importance of strengthening the collaboration of the international organization in the rehabilitation of the industrial facilities destroyed by terrorist acts, while also underlining that the unilateral coercive measures imposed by the Western powers on the country prevent of the inflow of technologies. He also stressed the need to complete projects aimed at revitalizing the agri-food sector to be financed by the Russian Federation. And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For TeleSUR English, I'm your host, Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.